Hello, I'm Paddy, the use less guy amongst other things, and today I'm talking about using less in the kitchen. Now there's been a bit of controversial debate, I think, that I've seen about dishwashing machines and whether they actually are more green, use less energy and less materials than hand washing. Well, no, not exactly a hand washing fan, but I've always grown up thinking that dishwashers are ridiculously luxurious and for wealthy people who are too lazy to wash their own dishes, and everyone should do their own washing, and it will make a man of you or a woman of you or something. So yeah, I do have prejudices, but there are some figures which suggest that the amount of water used, the amount of heating, I mean, because it's not so much the water but the hot water and how you're heating your water, dishwashers can be super efficient. So if you do have a dishwasher and you need to use a dishwasher, cafes and restaurants, I can see those circumstances, dishwashers are very useful, and you can get a nice hot wash and make sure things are really hygienic and you don't make your customers ill. But for me at home, there's two of us living here. I don't really feel like a dishwasher is necessary, and I don't think buying a dishwasher would make my washing any greener, because you've got to take into account the massive amount of energy it takes to make a dishwasher and transport it to your house and install it, and then when it breaks, eventually it will, the amount of energy to get rid of it and do something with all that material, all that steel and plastic and glass and stuff. So, hand washing, can you use less? Well, yes, I use a lot less. I did a little test on how much water I used for a medium-sized wash, and I used 6 litres of water, and that used about 0.6 kilowatt hours of electricity to heat. I'm on a green electricity supply, so that's all sustainable electricity, so I could argue that I've produced zero carbon at all in my whole thing, and just that 6 litres of water. Yeah, the water was a bit grubby afterwards. What does help is if you put all your food waste, and why have you got food waste? You should become a better cook. No, I mean, eat everything you possibly can until there's sort of the plates almost look clean. And if your food's so nasty you don't actually want to eat and clean your plate, then improve your cooking skills. I've got a few videos on my channel about how to improve your cooking. Yeah, so your plate should look pretty clean to start with and not have anything wasted on. Anything you can't eat, put it in the compost bin, and something will eat it in there. And after that, soaking things is really useful. So this here on the tap can is a breakfast bowl. I had some muesli in it and some milk. I've put some water in it, and that is clean now. And you can tell by the squeak that there's no grease. And why would there be grease with muesli, basically? So that can just go straight on my drying rack, and by tomorrow morning that'll be dry and I can have more muesli in the same bowl. So unlike a dishwasher where you'd put all your bowls in the dishwasher, all that muesli and milk or whatever you're eating, breakfast cereal, will dry out into a kind of hard gluey substance, and when you actually turn the machine on, you'll actually need those chemicals and the agitation and the spraying water and all the stuff that goes on inside a dishwasher. You'll need that to shift that kind of gluey bran and oats and things off your plates. Whereas just soaking, here's another one, that makes it clean. And I'm confident with the cleaning here by this squeak, because I can feel that there's no bits of dirt stuck to it, and I can hear that there's no grease. So where there's nothing for the bacteria to eat, and there's no water, because this will dry quite quickly for them to survive in, bacteria can't multiply, and that's fairly safe. I did hear somebody on the side of hand washing rather than on the side of dishwashers, that households where children grew up with a dishwasher, and the dishwashers killed so much of the bacteria on the plates that they grew up with more allergies. Now that's a bit of a theory about people's gut bacteria diversity and such like, but it does suggest maybe that having a little bit of bacteria, not the kind of horrible stuff like cholera and diphtheria and dysentery and things, but maybe a little bit of bacteria on your plates is a good thing. If it's a kind of, particularly in a family household where you're used to your family bacteria, as it were. Maybe, I don't know. Check my facts and let me know if you know more about this than I do, because that'd be interesting to know. On to more things. Coffee cup, which I have. There's some coffee grounds in the bottom, because I go to extremes with the filter coffee. I don't buy plastic bags of filter coffee. I actually get loose beans and grind them myself on a hand-powered grinder. This is really getting a bit hippie, isn't it? But there's always coffee grounds in the bottom of the coffee. But if I add a bit of water and leave it to soak, I tip that out. It needs a little bit more of a rinse, because there's a bit of a stain in the bottom there. But that, again, listen to that lovely squeak. That's clean. Put that on my drying rack. Use that again tomorrow. Toast plate. That's been soaking. It has some crumbs on it. Sometimes they stick a bit, but that's clean as well. That'll go on my special drying and storage rack, which I keep my plates on here so they dry and they just stay there, so no putting anything away is required. A wine glass, again, you put a bit of water in it to soak. Wine's not greasy, so that can, the rim can be greasy though. If people are wearing lipstick, you might have to resort to, you probably will, particularly waterproof lipstick, you'd have to resort to detergents on that, but is lipstick really necessary? I don't know. I don't imagine it's very good for you having that on your lips all the time, but I'm only a fella. Cutlery. Again, I've got this soaking in a coffee mug, so doing two things at once here. And this stuff will all clean quite quickly, but I think I will run this through my actual washing up bowl when it comes to washing them, because there may be some grease on some of the things. But since they've been soaking, there shouldn't be any kind of particles of food, so it'll keep my washing up liquid clear for longer, and it'll last longer, so I won't need to refill my bowl several times. There's another toast plate, that's clean. So you can see I'm doing most of my washing up without even doing the washing up, as it were, just by keeping things soaking. This one I can feel is a bit greasy, so that one is going to get a proper wash. And of course there's always the risk, if you've got a greasy container like this one here, then anything you put in there to soak is going to get greasy and is going to need washing up properly. So when it comes to actually doing the washing up, and when there's things that are kind of quite dirty, even having been soaked, I can recommend this kind of scourer, which is made of coconut husk, which I saw in a health food shop near me, same one where I get all my refills and coffee beans and everything. I thought this looks a bit of a gimmick. It was maybe £2.50 for one pad, and you can get like a whole bag full of these things for probably less than that. But I thought I'd give it a go, and I expected it to fall apart within 3 or 4 washes, but I've had this for maybe a few months. I don't use it all the time or scrub things very hard, but even bits coming off it now, but it's lasted a lot longer than I thought. And even if you're paying £1 more every 3 or 4 weeks to use this rather than using these plasticky sponges, it's surely one can afford that. Just about. A lot of people can anyway. A lot of us could. These things will probably last for decades, and when they do break down, they'll probably turn into something not very pleasant for the environment. Whereas this is just made out of coconut, and there's probably been coconut husk getting into the sea for millions of years. I think the sea can deal with coconut husk, whereas this kind of stuff is not good. Because when this finally shreds into bits, and it's lasting a good long time, I can put it in my compost bin, or I can use it to start a fire if I want. These also work well as things to put your soap on, to stop your soap going all gloopy in the soap dish. I think sometimes they're sold as that, but they make good scourers. When the scouring gets too much for one of these are quite good, and some councils here in Britain can recycle these in the metal recycling, so when they do finally get just no use at all, and I've been using this one for months, as long as you make sure you've kind of scraped off most of the dirt before you start your scrubbing, When this gets clogged up with dirt, it's a bit of a disaster. It's really hard to get it out. The downside with these is that little bits of metal do come off them and go down the drain, and I'm not sure whether the sewage works people take the metal out or whether that ends up in the sea and fishes eat it. I'm going to just find out if this is magnetic. It is, it's magnetic, so if there's any kind of magnetic sewage treatment works in the process, that would pick up any little bits of this. Interestingly as well, I did hear somewhere that plastic doesn't tend to dry out as well as things made of wood fibre like this. So where there's dirt and where there's water, great place for bacteria to grow. So maybe, again, check my facts, this could be a bit more hygienic. The smell test. That's not too horrible. Ooh, that smells a bit unpleasant. That smells of surface cleaner. But then again, this has been used with more surface cleaner than this it has, so I don't know. Another thing to consider with dishwashers is things like your carving knives or whatever. You might use this to cut up some cheese or meat or something, put it in the dishwasher. The next day when you need a knife like this, are you going to get the original one out of the dishwashing machine or run the dishwasher? Or will you have a second knife to do that thing? I mean, so do you need to have 4 or 5 knives in order to wash one each time in between actually running the dishwasher? Or do you need to run the dishwasher? I'll stop waving the knife around. Do you need to run the dishwasher every day? You just need one knife and you clean it off. And if it is greasy, I've got a spray bottle here with a little bit of detergent watered down in it. You can just, careful with your fingers obviously, but you can just give it a very quick wash in some cold water. That might well get it clean enough, and you can tell by the squeak whether it's clean or not. Be really careful with your fingers when you do that. I don't really recommend making knives squeak. But there we go, that is clean and can be dried off, and that's ready to use another day. So I think that's all I need to say right now about washing up. I should maybe just do the washing up rather than talking about it. Classic man, isn't it? Make a film about washing up rather than doing it. But yeah, enjoy your washing up however you do it, and try your best to use less. Less is the word, and soaking is also the word. One caveat: if you live in a place where there's all kinds of flies around, the kind of flies that breed in open water, standing water, you might want to consider a different approach. But my house thankfully isn't full of mosquitoes and nasty things like that, so this works really well for me, and it means I use a lot less electricity, a lot less chemicals, a lot less water, and yeah, less time as well. And I don't need a great big machine taking up space in my house. So keep using less, and I'll probably make some more videos a bit like this, for how to use less in different places. Bye then.